Hi, my name's Charlie Allen. I live in Bury. I've lived in Bury for about the past 15 years. I actually went to school in Trafford. I grew up in Sale. I'm currently working at the University of Manchester. I work in the Finance Directorate and my role is project management and project management finances. I've not always been in accounting. Prior to that, I worked in both Bury and Bolton in the community, teaching adult numeracy, which I enjoyed very much. Unfortunately, with adult education, the funding was drying up, and so that career sort of ended for me without myself choosing to sort of end that. I also worked for 12 months at Buckley Hall Prison in Rochdale, where I did adult numeracy, literacy and employability skills. I've been interested in politics for a long time, but haven't been what you might say politically active until about 5 years ago when I joined the Green Party. And I went on the People's March in Manchester when they were protesting against the austerity measures brought in by the Tory government, which was at the time when the Conservatives were in Manchester for their conference. And I was really inspired by the march, the rally, the speakers, and in particular what Natalie Bennett had to say. And that inspired me to join the Green Party and to look into the green policies more. And when I did that, I realised then that actually that spoke to me. The Green Party spoke to me more than any of the other parties. So that's when I decided to join. In my role currently as a project manager, project accountant, I have very good organisational skills, but I think mostly, I think it's the softer skills which will enable me to succeed. I've spent 5 years, like I said, teaching adults in the community. And I think listening skills are absolutely paramount. And during this campaign, whilst I've been going around Bury North talking to people, what I hear a lot of is that people don't feel listened to. They don't feel listened to by their local councillors, by their MP. And I think listening to people and trying to understand what their problems are is one of the greatest skills that you can have. Well, I've stood for Bury Green Party in the local elections 3 times now, I think. This is the first time I've stood in the general election. And I think I've done this because I really do feel that we need to have more Green MPs. There needs to be more of a Green voice in politics, not just locally, but nationally as well. For me, the major priority now and the major crisis that we have is climate change. And it's only the Green Party, I think, that has really got a handle on this and how it can be addressed. I like the Green Party because I think that party said more about social justice and equality than the other two parties, as well as environmental issues, which are of concern to me. They've always been of concern to me. But it was looking at the policies of the Green Party and particularly social justice, which is not something I get particularly from the other main parties, although there's quite a lot of what Labour say that I agree with, but I feel a lot more attuned with the green policies. There has been, over the years, a lot of research on climate change, and it's come to the forefront of the public's imagination in very recently through David Attenborough's programmes on television, which are very popular. And I think that has got people thinking about it. So I think he's done a great service to the planet by highlighting climate change in his programmes and trying to explain to people what the effects are when the ice caps melt, and what the effects are when we lose the Amazon rainforest, and how that affects all of us across the whole planet. You might think that sitting here in England, what's going on in the North Pole, what's going on in the Amazon rainforest isn't going to impact on us, but it absolutely is. And it's just so important. It's just so important that we address it. And we have to think about not just us, not just my generation, but we have to think about our children and our children's children and our children's children's children, because those are the people, those are the generations who are going to be impacted a lot more than I am, a lot more than my peers are. And I just think that now, with young people becoming enthused about it, starting to worry about it, starting to talk about it, it's like how we talked when I was young and as a teenager. We were absolutely frightened to death about the nuclear bomb and about a nuclear war, atomic bombs, and that's what we talked about, and there'd be programs on television about it. Now young people are concerned about the climate, and they're talking about it, and they're going on strike, and Extinction Rebellion have come to the forefront, and people are demonstrating, and it's gradually becoming more and more in people's imagination. But we have to think about what can we do as individuals, as well as what can the government do, what can local politicians do, what can large corporations do. I think we all have to take a collective responsibility and say, well, what can I do as an individual? And that might be something like, I'm not going to eat as much meat as I used to. We're not trying to be extreme. We're not trying to say, well, the only way we can save the planet is for everybody to be vegan, because everybody's not going to be vegan. But what we've got to try and do is, if we can all modify our behaviour somewhat, that will go a long way. Using our cars less, flying less, eating less meat, all these things, individual actions, will make a big difference. I would say to those people, you have to vote with your heart. You have to vote for what you truly believe in. That's what I do. That's why I joined the Green Party. It isn't a wasted vote. What is a wasted vote is if you don't vote. That's a wasted vote. But I think you need to be bold and not compromise, and actually vote in what you believe, because if people do that and did that without trying to vote tactically all the time, then I think we'd have a different political landscape. I think the main priority, not just for Bury North, but I think it's the main priority for every constituency across the land, is that we start to take serious measures to address climate change and start putting forward a plan. We hear all the dates, you know, some people say we need to have it done by 2030, 2038, 2050. What are we doing now? It's what we're doing now, which is important, so that we can get to zero carbon by those dates. So that is massively important. We need to locally, each area needs to locally put together its plan and what we are going to do in our constituency. My other priority, I think, which is desperate, is social care. We really need to start looking at social care and how we're going to meet the needs of our increasingly elderly population, because at the moment there is no plan, there is inadequate funding, and it's getting desperate. No, I wouldn't. The reason for that, I actually don't know how much it costs to buy a football club, so I have no idea the sum of money that we're talking about. But given how strapped for cash the council is, I wouldn't think that that would be a priority for spending for the council. Having said that, I think it would be a great shame for Bury to lose its football club. What I would advocate for is if the council were able to assist or facilitate in any way to find a buyer for Bury Football Club, but I don't think it should be bought from local taxpayers' money. Absolutely, absolutely. Bury, in common with a lot of constituencies, has suffered greatly from this government's austerity measures. Only today in the Bury Times, there is a report about the schools in Bury North and the class sizes and how the class sizes have gone up and up and up. The council do not have enough funding to adequately address the educational needs of the Bury, the borough, sorry. In addition to that, we have things like the closure of the libraries. There isn't enough funding for social care. Social services have been cut. Children's services have been cut. There isn't any money, they tell us, to repair the roads. And the state of the roads is an issue which a lot of constituents are bothered about. I think also the other areas of concern, crime and the police. The Tory government cut the number of police officers. They're now saying they're going to increase the number of police officers by 20,000, I think they say. So there really is no other reason why the borough is declining apart from adequate funding. There is a belief that throwing more money at anything will rectify the problem. And in a lot of cases, underfunding makes things a lot worse. I think also we need to look at the level of funding that's provided, but also I think it's important that we look at how that funding is used, because I think, you know, funding does need to be used efficiently. Some people think that there's too much funding goes on one area at the expense of another area. And I think it's about looking at what the priorities are and sort of trying to juggle between them and to make sure that money is used in the best way it possibly can do, because there isn't unlimited money. The more money that is thrown into something, the more money is always required, and you know that is never ending. But it has to be a balance between the level of funding provided and how it's used, I think. I think it's very difficult because you don't always know what is a lie and what isn't a lie. And I think that what you need, I think that what you need to do, I think you need to go to reliable sources for your information. And I think you need to question as well and discuss it with people and sort of question what's being told. Don't just believe everything that you see on social media, for example. Do some more research, go to reliable sources of information and try and work out, you know, what is correct, what's a lie, what isn't a lie. It's very, very difficult. It really... Caroline Lucas. She's my favourite political MP. She's our only Green MP at the moment. I think Caroline is very honest. I think Caroline is very truthful. She works hard. She has a sense of right and wrong, what is fair, what is equal. And I just admire her tremendously. I think she's got an enormous amount of energy. And I think she does a really good job. I like the debate. I like the debate about politics. I like looking at lots of different social issues. I like talking to people who have different views as well. The cut and thrust of it, I suppose. Talking to like-minded people as well. No, I wouldn't. With maybe the exception of the SNP or Plaid Cymru, but no, I wouldn't. £10 million, it sounds a lot of money, but it actually isn't a great deal of money. I think that I would use that to kickstart the green economy in Bury, kickstart green jobs, green energy, and get things moving on climate change. Oh, anywhere green. I spend a lot of time at Burst Country Parks. I live not far from there. I go there with my dogs most days. I like the parks in Bury. I think we've got a lot of nice parks. I like Bury Market. I like wandering around Bury Market. I think you know, we've got a really good thing in Bury with the market. I've got a little grandson. I've got two little grandsons, and both of them enjoy the steam trains in Bury. I think in Bury North, I think there are a number of things that we need to do to improve things, and I think there is enormous potential. But I think we need to do things. One thing that's really important is the public transport system that we've got. We need to improve the infrastructure. We need to have a much better public transport system, because without that, we cannot generate the wealth that's needed to bring the constituency up. So we need to create more jobs. We need to create better jobs for people in Bury. We need to get rid of all this 0 hours contracts and minimum wage jobs. We need to improve housing. There's a lot of scope for improving housing for people in Bury. But we need to make more of an equal society. And we need to do that by generating wealth. But there is huge potential for Bury North. It just takes some investment. I think it's very difficult to measure who is working harder than who. This hard-working phrase, which you hear a lot, hard-working families. you know, people work. How do we know who's working harder than others? I think it's about equality. It's about equality of opportunity. It's about raising people's living standards, getting people out of poverty, giving people a decent level of income. It's not about who's working harder than somebody else, and these people should be paid more because they work harder than these people here. I just don't think that that gets us anywhere. That doesn't give us an equal and fair society. I think that somebody who's experienced has been in politics for a longer time isn't as fresh. With me, you get a fresh voice. With me, you get the enthusiasm, the certainty, the belief in our policies and the convictions of my own belief and what I think is right.